Hey, welcome back. So as you might be aware, OpenAI has released their agent builder functionality, which is a low-code interface to allow you to easily create AI agents. In fact, it has a simple workflow where you basically can drag and drop some nodes, connect them together, and then you'll build your AI agent. And if that sounds pretty familiar, then if you've used tools like Zapier or N8N or Langflow, then it's a very, very similar style interface and experience. So in this video, I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the platform. I'm going to show you how you can quickly create an AI agent that will go and get the latest news from something like TechMeme or TechCrunch. I'll show you how you can build a RAG-based agent, i.e. have the agent use a document source as its knowledge and grounding. And I'll also show you how you can use guardrails and classification and even connect up to an MCP server, which is really the unlock that this gives. And therefore you're all going to go off and build MCP servers. So to get started, you need to go to platform.openai.com/agent-builder. And once we open that up, and obviously you're going to have an API account to interact with that, you're going to be faced with this create a workflow screen. Now it's pretty simple to get started. I'm just going to click on the create button. And as you see there, it's a sort of start tag in a my agent. And as we click on this, start is always where we start from. So this is the start of a workflow node. Again, if you've ever dealt with workflows before, this is going to feel pretty familiar. But the first thing that you are going to deal with is the agent. Now, if I deleted this for a second, we just took the agent, I would be able to go into this little toolbar over here, drag and drop the agent down, and then connect it up with a connector here, and I would have the same experience. So if we look at the agent, you see the agent can have a name. So I might just do a pirate agent just for a second so that you can see how it works. We'll say you are a pirate and always speak in pirate speak. And again, we're not going to use any tools at this point. I can include the chat history. You see the context is going to come in automatically. If I wanted to, I can actually put the input into the instructions, but I'm okay with this as it stands. So the model is going to be GPT-5 here. If I want to, I can select something smaller. So this is a simple pirate, so we'll just switch it down to mini. To be honest, nano would work in this case. I don't really need any reasoning, so I'll leave that alone. Tools and output format we're going to look at a little bit later on. And then you see some sort of verbosity and all of these things and some of the chat options. We're going to leave that for just now, but this is our very simple agent. And if I want to, I can click on preview and then I can say, tell me a joke. And then hopefully it's going to kick off my agent there. Now there's no tools at this point. It's not going to go off to the internet. But there we go. It answers the question, are here the zone? Why don't pirates know the alphabet? Because they always get stuck at C. I mean, that's a terrible joke, but it's as simple as that to create your first agent. And if I wanted to, I could go and publish that and make it available. If we click on the agent SDK for a second, you can actually see that the workflow is really just a representation of the agent SDK, because you can see here is the very same pirate that I just created. Pirate agent, you're a pirate, GPT-5 mini, the reasoning effort, and then here's this little workflow input. So what's actually happening in the agent SDK has got all this concept of kind of your workflows, and you can see exactly what I'm doing. So you have that code representation of your workflow as well. So as I said in the video, we are going to create ourselves an agent that will get the latest AI news. So I'm going to drag agent onto here as I did before. I'm going to connect it up with the connector. I'll click on agent. Again, I'm going to select GPT-5 mini because I'm being cheap. And then I'm going to give it a set of instructions. You are an AI news agent. You will get the latest AI news from the specified websites. Give me a short of AI news article. Give 3 to 5 articles at max. Only get news from today's date. So use site search. Don't confirm anything. Just get the articles. Notice how specific. I don't want it to prompt me. I don't want it to come up with long articles. I'm being very specific. I want today's date only. And then I'm going to say get from multiple sources if possible. So now that I've done that, again, I'm not going to change the reason and effort, but now I'm going to click on tools, and you see the built-in tools. There's an MCP server, there's a file search, there's a web search, and there's a code interpreter. We'll talk about MCP and file search a little bit later on, but I'm going to select web search, and then I'm just going to add techmeme.com and techcrunch.com to the list, and that will mean that it will only search within these websites as opposed to go and search in the entire web. So it's really sort of adding sort of extra guardrails to make my agent more accurate. So I'm going to click add, I'm going to select preview, and we'll say get me the latest AI news. And so we'll run that for a second. It'll take a second for the agent to spin itself up. But then as you can see, it's moved from start to agent and it's now searching the web. So it should go off using the search tool. Go look at techmeme.com, look at TechCrunch, and then you see it's using the site syntax. So the reason I specified to use site is that obviously some websites are going to block, etc., or I don't want to over hit websites. So just by using the index of the search engine, we can get the information that we want probably from their cache. So you see it's got TechCrunch and then TechMeme. So it's got my 3 articles, it's different sources. And then it's all about today's news. So we're doing pretty well so far. I said we were going to do a RAG agent, so something that was grounded on a document source. So we're going to do that now. So we're going to come back into tools. I'm going to remove web search, and this time I'm going to select in that file search. So I have 2 ways of doing this. I could just drag the files in here and upload, but that's probably not the interesting way of doing this because, you know, there are, if you get a large amount of files, the better thing to do is use a vector store. So i.e. upload your files into a vector database. So OpenAI hosts a vector database in this case. Whether you want to put your data up there, that's sort of up to you, but you can do it this way. Another technique that you can use if you want to host your own vector database is you don't need to use this. You could just use an MCP server. Most of the vector database providers like Quadrant, etc., all have MCP servers. So again, that could be a way of doing that. But for easiness, I'm just going to select vector store here. You see it's going to want my vector store ID. So I'm just going to click on the vector stores button there, and it's going to open up OpenAI storage. And then all I need to, and that's on platform.openai again. So I'm just going to create a vector store, and we're going to call this one thinking. So I'm going to upload the Thinking Machines paper from a few weeks ago, which I'm probably going to do a video on at some point. So this paper is called Defeating Non-Determinism in LLMs. It was created by the team at Thinking Machines, which is sort of headed up by Mira Marathi, who was the former CTO of OpenAI. And then again, it's all about how you defeat non-determinism in LLM inference. So great paper, go check it out. I will do a video on it at some point, but we're going to use that as our grounding. So it's going to search that paper. So if we come back in here, we'll just hit attach, and then that vector store should go and create and be ready and index pretty soon. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this vector store ID. So I just copy in this and click on copy, and I can come back into my agent builder, and you see here where it says select an existing vector store. I just paste in that ID. There's my Thinking Machines one that I just created. I'm going to hit select. And now I can say you are an expert in LLM inference, and you will answer questions on it using the document provided. Do not use your own knowledge. Answer the questions using the document only. And again, you see this looks pretty much as it did before. Tools in this case is my vector store database there. And again, if I want to, I can preview and I can say what are the main causes of non-determinism in inference. Now, as you can see there, the agent is kicked off and it's saying I need to use the file search, MS search. One of my queries should be the user's original question as a complete sentence, etc. So it's going to go off and call the tool. It's going to run some searches there. It's reasoning. And then you say there are two classes of causes, blah, blah, blah. So one of the things I can do if I want to is I can actually just add another agent in the way there. So, I mean, I could do it within the agent that we have, but what I'm going to do here is just connect up another agent, and then I'm going to say, you are an expert question answerer. You will take the complicated answer to the user's question and explain it to them as if they are a 5-year-old. The original question was, and again, if I just click on add context there, this time I'm going to put the workflow input, so the input as text. So rather than getting the output from the agent, I'm wanting to take as context what the original question is, and that will now be available. I'm going to use GPT-5 because I want a better model in this case. And then I am just going to go back into my preview mode. And again, I can give these better names. So in this case, I'm going to go summarizer. And then we'll hit preview and we'll ask, what are the major causes of non-determinism in LLM inference? And let's see what comes back. So as you can see there, we've moved from start. We're on the first agent who's going to go off and perform the file search as it did before. So it's doing the searches, and then it's going to get some answers from the vector search. And then here it's got its short answer, which again is pretty complicated there, which I don't want to see. That is then going to feed through, once it's done that, to the summarizer. So complicated answer, very long, and then the summarizer is going to take that as an input and then give us a really simple answer to the question. Now you can see it's come back and it says, think of LLM like a big kitchen making soup. If you do the steps in a slightly different order, you can end up with soup that tastes a tiny bit different. And then it goes through the reasons. And I think that's a pretty good answer. Again, if I wanted to make this shorter, I could say, make the answer short. Do it in a few sentences. And we'll ask it one more time. And then hopefully, rather than getting a big waffly answer, we should get it back within a few sentences. And there we go. It came back. This time is one large paragraph. Sometimes LLMs don't say the exact same thing because the computer math is like adding tiny grainy sounds in a different order. And that can change the pile a little. This is a really good explanation, by the way. So that is so as you can see, that's a sort of multi-agent workflow, and the summarizers came back with what I want, and all I'm doing is sort of adding nodes, etc. together. Now, if I wanted to, I could even then start to put guardrails in between, because maybe I don't want my agents going off topic. So one of the things I could do is add a guardrail within here. So what a guardrail is going to do is it's going to check for inputs that you don't want. So I'm going to remove the link from here, and I'm going to put this into guardrails, and then I'm going to drive a new link from guardrails to agent. What a guardrail is it looks at the input prior to feeding the agent, and then you can check for certain things. So I can check to see if there's any personally identifiable information. So let's do the check. If there's a pass, I'm going to go to this agent. So if I don't want you typing in your credit card number, then I could just put that in. And then if somebody puts that in there, we can sort of fail. Again, moderation is really harmful content. You can check for jailbreaking. Now, hallucination is an interesting one. What that will actually do is check that the outputs were actually correct. So one of the things I could do is introduce another guardrail over here. So I can have multiple of these in here, and then I could just remove this, put this onto guardrails, and then I could put the guardrail to over here. And then if we'll just put some end nodes in here. So if there's a failure, then we'll just end the workflow. And now what we will do here is just come back into this guardrail. We can switch on hallucinations. So we'll put in my vector store ID that we had before, the thinking machines one. So now if I ask it something like, tell me how to break into a car, what should happen is this guardrail will kick in there. And then as you can see, it will say, nope, it's triggered a guardrail, and then it's not run there. So that's pretty good. And then similarly, if it was hallucinating over here, then this guardrail would kick in. So that's how guardrails sort of work. Now, they're a little extreme. Sometimes you want something a little bit lighter. Maybe I want to check if something is on topic, and that's where maybe I could use something like a classifier. So what I am going to do in that case is I'm going to create a new agent. And then I'm going to call this a classifier. You are a topic classifier. You will look at the question and classify whether it's about LLMs or not. So basically it's going to take the input and then it's going to decide, is this question about an LLM or not? So it's going to include the chat history. Again, I could use GPT-5 mini. There's no reason why I need to use GPT-5 there. reason and effort can be low. But what I'm going to do is change the output format to JSON rather than text. And then I can add a schema for my classifier. Now, there's a whole language behind this. It's a language called Common Expression Language to be able to do this. But what's really cool here is there's a generate. And what we're going to want here is the topic of the question about LLM inference or not. We'll click create. And then it will actually generate out the schema. So you see here, it's now got is LLM inference topic, is of type Boolean, and the description true if the topic of the question is about LLM inference, otherwise false. So that's pretty good. I'm going to click update, and I'm going to place that just before this agent here. So I'm going to run this into my classifier. So now what's going to happen here is once the guardrail is passed, it is going to go to my classifier, and it's going to tell me whether it's about LLM inference or not. But I need to determine of whether I'm going to go to that agent or if I'm going to go elsewhere. So what I am going to do here is introduce another piece of logic. This is an if else. And then basically, if it's about LLM inference, it's going to go to the agent. So to check this, I just need to pass from my classifier into if else. And if that's true, we're good. And if it's not true, I'm going to ask for user approval. So I'm going to add a user approval step there. We're going to say, we're going to pass that in. So if it's not about LLM inference, then the user is going to have to approve it. And if they approve it, we're going to call the agent as we did before. So this is quite a complicated workflow already, but hopefully you're getting the idea. So we're going to come back into the if else, and I'm going to say is LLM inference is the name, and I need to put a condition. Now the good news is learning common expression languages is probably interesting. But probably the easiest way of doing this is just using the built-in tools here. The tools here are really good. So you can see here within the classifier is LLM inference topic, which I created, is all automatically there. I'm just going to click on that. And I don't need to do any comparison because it just needs to be true. So if that is the case, I'm going to click off. So now that we've done that, I just need to put some sort of approval in there. So I'm going to say, do you approve the user's request? And then and we'll say the question was, and we will just add some context in there. So we'll add the original question, and that will be good. And all I'm now going to do is drag, if that's all good, I'm going to drag the approve down to the agent, and then it should answer that question. So now I'm going to hit preview, and I'm going to say, tell me a joke about cheese. And then as you can see, the agent is going to kick off. It's going to start with the guardrails. It will pass there because it's fine. It's not it doesn't hit any of the issues there. The classifier is going to check if it's an LLM inference topic. It's not an LLM inference topic, so I have to approve it. I'm going to say approve. And then it's going to go to the agent, and then hopefully the agent will tell me a joke about cheese. Oh, it says I can help, but I must follow the instructions. I'm allowed to answer questions. And then that will be good. And then finally, it's run through the guardrails, and then you say, what do you call cheese? As in yours, nacho cheese, right? And then if I say, what are the major reasons for non-determinism in LLMs? Then we just run that one more time. And then what we should see here is this time it goes through the guardrails. It should pass the guardrail, which it does. It should also pass the classifier, which it does. It is now onto my agent, so we don't need user approval. And then it's going to go and do the search. And then it should do the hallucination check. And then eventually it should, once it's done all of its very long answers, it should come through to the summarizer. So it's got its long answer now. It's now going to check for hallucination against the guardrail. And you can see it's safe text. The doc identifies 2 root causes. So you see it's checking that the output that we got was valid and actually came from the documents and it didn't make it up. And eventually it comes back with a summarizer. Sometimes the model rolls the dice to pick some words, and I think that's a pretty good answer. So there we go. In that very short period of time there, We have run guardrails, we've run human approval, we've done if else's, so we've done expression checks with structured schemas, and we're running multiple agents to perform the task. So I think there was one more thing I wanted to show. So I'm going to create one more workflow, and this is just going to show you how an MCP works. I have done videos in MCP servers before, so you can go and check that out. But the cool thing is you can just go and build your MCP server and utilize it. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to select this agent here. And in this case, I'm going to select Tools, and I'm going to select MCP Server. Now, there's a bunch of MCP servers or connectors that you can connect to, you know, everything from Gmail, Google Drive, etc. I'm not going to go through that today. There's a marketplace, so more of these things will appear. The bit I'm most interested in is server here. So if I want to, I can connect my own MCP server. So I could build my own MCP server and then add that in, or I could access one on the public internet. So I'm going to pick an MCP server called context7, which basically has an index, kind of like that file search, that RAG search that you said, but it's got an index of all the latest documentations, things like OpenAI's documentation, Apple's documentation. So if you know how LLMs have cutoff dates. If you need to get the latest information on an API, you can use that. So we'll say context7, and then it has no authentication, so I'll just select that. Again, if you create your own MCP server, you can just put your MCP server details in there. And I will do a video at some point creating our own MCP server and then hooking it up to this. So we'll click connect. And you'll see there it's established the connection to MCP7. It's got two tools, resolve library ID and get library doc. So I think that's pretty good. I'm going to hit add. And then I'm going to say, if asked a technical question, use context7 MCP server to answer rather than your own knowledge base for recent API questions. Okay, so now that it's done that, we can just hit preview. This is a nice simple one. And we'll say, give me some Python code to call GPT-5's reasoning API to get the latest weather. And as you can see, it's now calling the agent, and then the agent should say, okay, I need to use context7. Now, one of the things here is it's going to ask for approval. I'm going to say yes. And then it's going to go off and do it. And there we go. It's came back. It's done its searches. And it said, here's a self-contained Python example that uses the OpenAI responses API call, which is what I wanted it to use. And it's going to use OpenMedia's geocoding and weather APIs. So it's going to do that. It's came back with the code that I need. And we're sort of good to go there. So it's went and used an MCP server. So that is pretty cool. And you can imagine the possibilities. You can just create more and more MCP servers as you go along. That is Agent Builder. It's pretty good. I mean, as I said, you're probably going to find it quite basic if you've used other tools like kind of Zapier and N8N, which have probably got much deeper logic connectors. And again, LangFlow is another one. These are pretty simple. It's just if else whiles, but it's pretty powerful. I've shown you how to use MCPs. I've shown you how to do file search, shown you how to use guardrails. I've shown you how to use agents and how to use logic, etc. It's pretty cool stuff. And that's all you need to know. And it honestly doesn't take you longer than sort of 20 minutes to learn all of this and start creating your own agents. And then when you want to create your own agents, you can, take the agent SDK and do whatever with it. You can use ChatGPT. I'll maybe cover that in another video. But if you want to publish it, you just publish a workflow. And then once you publish that, that will be available as an API call. And you can call via the OpenAI's API. And you can just call your workflow and you're good to go. So anyway, that's my video on Agent Builder. I hope you find it useful and I hope you have fun with it. And I'll catch you on the next one.